Upgrades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here again to talk about an amazing show that Netflix has been killing it with. And I'm talking about Castlevania. This is a new edition called Nocturne. This is our series review, so it's going to be completely non-spoiler. We will be dissecting it, but we will not be leaving any notice until the show comes out. It releases out officially September the 28th, but I will let you guys know that this takes place much later into the future as far as when we've seen the last few characters like Trevor Belmont. This is the descendant from Trevor Belmont in Richter Belmont. And he also is a vampire hunter, but you find out very early on in the first episode that he's also got his own destiny. But I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host in. What's going on, Nat? What's going on, Ty?
Hello.
What's going on, good people?
We're about to go ahead and dive in. So real quick thoughts, because we haven't done like a first reaction of it because we binged it in one whole night, which is a terrible idea for anybody that works and has kids. But it was that good. I want you guys to kind of let me know your immediate thoughts, kind of like also piece together, like if you've watched all the rest of them, like what drew you to watching this one, given that none of the original cast were there? This seems like it could look as a prequel, but it's very much so a sequel. So what was your all's interpretation of what you saw? Nat, I'll go with you first.
I wasn't sure what I was expecting. I did really enjoy Castlevania, all 4 seasons. The characters, the animation, the fight scenes, the way that they animated the fight scenes, just everything about it. The magic, just everything about it was great. So I was hopeful that this would be like a decent sequel, especially it kind of reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Awesome series. And then Korra came out, and I felt like it was a decent, sequel, especially years later after the lovable cast that we knew and loved from Avatar. And, some of the seasons were better than others. So I was expecting something similar to this, and I'm really happy to say that this first season knocked it out of the park. So I am definitely looking forward to more seasons.
Ooh, yeah, I could definitely agree with that. Ty, what's your thoughts, man?
So I'm kind of on the same wavelength as Nat. I was very surprised and even somewhat excited that, the sequel is happening years, like generations after the tales of Trevor Belmont. So I like that it's in a whole new setting, unique, and we are dealing with the tradition of the Belmonts and their fight against vampires. And even though in the original series, we had Trevor and it felt more like an origin story. And this one, that's what I like. They kind of transitioned this one and it also kept an origin story in terms of Richter Belmont. But he is carrying on this legacy. It did feel, I have to agree with Nat, it did feel very Avatar to Legend of Korra. But what I did like is that I think they did a much better job of referencing some of the past than Legend of Korra did. So I liked it. I enjoyed it first season. Knocked it way out of the park for me. Really good. Put in a very, very interesting environment, and it gave you a good story in the mix. It's almost like these are the things that were happening behind the veil, under the shadow, and I'm sure we'll get into the environment I'm talking about, but I love that they kind of made it like, here's what you know, but here's what's happening behind the scenes. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was in love with the first 4 seasons. Like the first season when it came out, I didn't jump on that bandwagon. I was like, can it be that good? Then the second season came out, and I was like, oh man, I got to catch up. I watched that first season so fast, I flew through the second season. And it's not just it's amazingly well animated, but there are good, rich characters. The thing that scared me about this one was, is this going to give me as much value as I got from all these other characters they've already introduced and opened the world up to more possibilities? Can we start off with a brand new, fresh set of characters that I'm going to rally behind? And I can say effectively, and I'm pretty sure you guys the same way, we're tied in. Like they've hooked us in all over again, with a little bit of sprinkle of representation in there. So I'm so impressed that they're still finding new ways of taking, because it's not like they're just pulling these characters out of nowhere. Like there is source material that they can go back to. There are games that they can go back to. But for them to skip so many generations of Belmonts to go here during the French Revolution is a very fascinating thing, because the themes in this one, I don't think that the other ones really hit like what this tried to do. And I think we got to go over it because I don't think anybody's going to expect it. And I think it's a pleasant surprise. Even more so, I think it builds upon the other characters that people don't know that they're going to fall in love with and hate simultaneously. But I'll use these first characters right here. We'll talk about this amazing character first, and that is Drolta. So Drolta, her goal is to bring the vampire messiah that she is invoking as being the queen of the vampires. She's going to be dawning a new era for the world. And she's an advocate for this person. And she is ruthless, she is cunning, but she's got style. And it's fascinating how they dress her, how they use her. And I don't know, like, how did you guys feel about some of the new characters in this one? Using her as a place point.
I'll let
Ladies first.
Oh, okay. Jolta surprised me. Because she's a bad guy. Of course, I'm going to hate her. I didn't expect to like her as much as I did, but the way that they styled her, her mannerisms, just the way that she interacted with some of the other characters, her fight scenes, I'm just like, I need more. I need more. You're twisted as heck, but dang, I need more. Like this was just not expected. And I kept on commenting on the way that they drew her hair. Like she was black. Okay. Yeah. I was loving the hairstyles that they were giving her throughout the season. And again with her outfits. So I'm expecting some cosplay. Like there's a lot of characters just in animation in general this year that I just feel like, especially as far as representation goes, especially for Black women, I'm expecting some cosplay within the next few years on these characters. I'm expecting it.
Yeah. Ty, you have anything to talk about Drolta?
Yeah, let's keep this thing a whole buck. If Beyonce was a vampire in terms of style, it's Drolta. It's Drolta. Like her whole style and fashion was top tier, but she's also basically the Keisha Knight poem in the Chingy video. Like every time I try to leave, something keeps pulling me back. Like I know I don't like her. I know she's toxic. I know she's she carries a very, very interesting seduction. I know she's crazy. I know she's a horrendous person. She's probably like the son of Sam, you know, kind of chick. But it's almost like Freddy Krueger rolling up in the Ferrari, and the chick is like, yeah, he's horrific. He's a horrific monster, but you know, he kind of cool though in the Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? You see Drolta roll up like, yeah, she's crazy. She'll chop you in half, cut you from stem to sternum, and enjoy it. But that outfit though, like that's kind of where you are. Like I didn't expect to like her as I did. Not really just also for the style, but the fact that she's a badass. Like you can't just take her down, and honestly, it gets solidified when you see who takes her down. Like when you see who takes her down, it's like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense because of who she is. We've seen folks try it and look at her like, oh, well, she's a woman. You know, we probably got this. No, she's decimating folks left, right, and center. And when you finally see who takes her down, it's like, that makes perfect sense. Absolute perfect sense. Because she's S tier level. She's S tier level. She's like the Octavia Spencer of the Help. If she's gonna be the side character, she needs that Oscar level supporting actress kind of level. That's what she is. She's a badass. She don't play. She's the one that baked the cake and said, "Eat my stuff." Like that's her. She's that level.
Yeah, and even piggybacking off of her, there's another character that honestly our main character's first level of trauma was invoked by, and and he man, I don't even know how to describe him as a character because he's a vampire through and through. And I didn't know that this was voiced by Zahn. And if you know who Zahn is, if you've seen Westworld and what he's capable of as an actor, he's amazing. And I felt like there was definitely some Native American mannerisms and certain styles to like his look. And it's immediately, I was like, okay, this is perfect casting. Because honestly, between him and I think it's Elrica Johnson, like they crushed it as far as their characters. I mean, whether you like them or not, like both of these actors are really pulling something out of characters that honestly on paper may not have worked. But I feel like the creators and the writers were like, no, let's model them off of who these actual actors can be and what they bring to the table. But I did want to ask you guys, what did you guys think of Orzak and kind of what he did to Reacher, like to kind of bring him down this path, so to speak? I mean, some of you guys have probably seen the trailers, so you kind of already know that it's pretty traumatic. But what was you guys' experiences on his character?
Again, you want to hate him. And in some ways you do because of his actions. But he's like, oh my gosh, he's like the anti I don't even want to say that. Like he's someone you want to hate, but there's a charm about him. There's just something about him that you want to root for him at the same time. And again, his style and his mannerisms, he's really engaging, and what he does throughout the series, it's kind of like he has his own growth and his own transformation, so to speak. I mean, he has his own agenda regardless, but he's still keeping stuff close to the vest. You kind of get a sense of where he may go, or the direction, his overall arc, but it's still fun to see him get there. And it's been an enjoyable ride, even with him. Yes, trauma inducing, but again, very charismatic and just very another character that you don't mind seeing on screen, even though he's doing some things that just you don't agree with.
Well, it depends. Some people may agree with what he's doing.
No. I'm talking about like what he does as far as like the overall plan, the vampire plan. I'm not talking about other things. I didn't mind that at all.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
no, Ty, what's your take on this character?
So ironically, I really did not. I'm not turning down his viciousness or anything like that. He's a beast of a character, but I didn't hate him because he reminds me. He reminds me. He's basically the male version of Beatrix Kiddo, because the reasons for what he inflicted on Richter, some might justify that, not on Richter, but that Richter witness. Some might justify that. And he kind of handled it the same way Uma Thurman's character did with the little girl. Like, at some point you might come after me, and I'll be ready for you. But of course, as a vampire, he has some arrogance and things to it, which makes it seems a little more sinister. But it doesn't take away from the fact that what he did, in some people's minds, would be justified. And the thing is, the emphasis on that justification is shown in the further you see him interacting with another character. It's kind of like, okay, I understand why you did what you did because of how you felt and how you interact with this new person kind of shows this is why you're willing to do what you do. So unlike Drolta, and I'm not taking down his level at all, they are up there in terms of tier level villains. He gives me more of a Beatrix Kiddo, and even sometimes like an Aaron Black from Mortal Kombat. He's just that loner. It's like he ain't really with it. He ain't really against it. It's really more so, how does this benefit me, kind of thing. And if it doesn't benefit me, I'm willing to flip on you, that kind of thing. It's more so what's to his benefit. But I also respect the fact that I can't put him, they're S tier level villains, but I cannot put him all the way completely up with Drolta, because he does have boundaries, and we see that here. He does have something where he's like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little too far, but let me turn this to my vantage point, that kind of thing. He's kind of just that guy that he's like David Carradine. He's like, I'm Kane. I will help you, or for the right price, I got it. I'll do it. Don't matter to me whether it's for the good or for the bad or whatever. I did not hate him as much as I hated / loved, the black female Howard Stern that is Drolta. So
That's hilarious. But yeah, so we got to talk about the main character because there's several different characters that surround him. There is Tara that it kind of basically is like a mother figure. There is Maria that's kind of like a sister figure, and then there's a new character that we'll get into. But the thing I wanted to place with this is that Cypher and Trevor's relationship created a whole new lineage of Belmonts. Because of course she's a magic user and he's just a proficient hunter. And when you conjoin that, like each one of them down the line have not only more than willing and capable of killing monsters, but they're also magic users. And so their descendant is Richter. And with him, there's so many different nudges to their characters that you see in him. But at the same exact time, there's something that he has that none of them have, which is fear. And that fear is a catalyst because of his trauma. And it's kind of like we knew Trevor back in the day. Trevor was like, I don't care. Look, I'll deal with whatever, And Cynthia, like she kind of was like very proud and she's just strong natured. And he's got those in him, but at the same time, that fear is something that's controlling him. And it's a very interesting character dynamic because it makes him codependent on characters like Tara, on characters like Maria. And then when he gets introduced to a certain character, it kind of changes even his willingness to be better. And I know you guys know who I'm talking about, and that is Annette. I'm curious y'all's perspective on that group and kind of how Annette kind of brings it full circle, whether you accept it or not. And technically, it's not just Annette; it's also Edward as well. Edward plays a very pivotal part of this as well, which is probably one of the most emotional characters in this entire thing, given what he's going through. But yeah, what did you guys take on that group, which is the home team?
It's one of those things where I'm getting introduced to a new crew and I'm trying to get to know them. Richter, I knew he would be a mix of Trevor and I'm sorry, what was the other?
It's Cypher.
Cypher. I knew it was an S name. It's been a minute, y'all. Sorry. So I knew he would be a good mix between them two, but I also expected Tara and Maria to kind of remind me of Sipha, as far as the magic and just the overall personality. Annette and Edward, I'm happy for representation. I'm happy that we get like a story with them, their struggle and what's happening in that cycle of history other than the French Revolution, their story and how what their powers are, how they utilize those powers. And Annette did frustrate me a few times, but she came around, as some characters do. And then Edward, like you said, Sam, like his story is emotional. Like I was starting to get choked up at times because I was like rooting for him too. I'm like, Edward, just make it, bro, just make it. And of course some things you can kind of see where it goes, but again, the journey there and to see maybe what may happen beyond that made it enjoyable too. So this is just round one. We know we got more seasons to go until they get it together.
How will you take on some of the new characters on the home team?
So I particularly like the squad. However, like I said, I agree with that statement on the diversity. I'm very glad to see some of that diversity. The problem I had, and this is my probably one nitpick, and I call it's a very minor nitpick because we do get something of what I was looking for, but when we have these diverse characters like Annette, like Edward, even Drolta, why is it that when we have these folks, they have to have some crazy aspect or something wrong with them or make incredibly stupid decisions, that not only just affect them, but really actually affect the people that are the quote unquote, for lack of a better word, wholesome aspect, And why is it that when these things are happening, it's not other folks doing it to these characters of color? It's really them doing it to themselves, And we see that so often. And I think like Nat said, there were aspects of Annette where I was just like, oh man, she's great. And then as it progressed, it's like, yo, you really pissing me off because you're doing basic stupid stuff that honestly, I'm just going to say it, as a person of color, we instinctively don't really do. We don't.
I wasn't trying to go there, but
I'll say it. Say anything, you won't call me a liar. We don't go through something and say, yeah, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to Freddy Krueger or Jason and do that. No, we're gonna go the other direction, But going through the other characters, I certainly felt like Tara was that Cypher, for No, I'm sorry. Maria was the cipher for Richter. You know, Tara was kind of like that auntie that's not the mom, you know, that the one that takes you under her wing and really cares about you. And all she's really trying to do is balance you out, you know, which I felt was kind of ironic. She was the mother figure, whereas Edward was the semi brother slash father figure for Annette, where it's like she was who mellowed her out. He was who mellowed her out. When she was raised, you could tell further on, like when she went off the handles, if it wasn't for Edward, she would have gone off the rails. I think I think Richter actually was that for Maria because he was more balanced out. And then, of course, he kind of filled the gap where Tara could not because he was another outside person who gave a different perspective, even though Tara had probably been giving that to Maria for a while. So we're dealing with we're dealing what I and to the basic level, everybody has depth. And that's what I really like about each of the characters, the squad, as I call them. Every single character had depth, but all of them in their own way had some form of traumatic experience that basically they end up having to somewhat face, you know. But even for us, it was like, okay, Annette has to face the fact that she can't do certain things in a certain way because it will affect other people, right? Edward, you know, Edward was always 10 toes down with Annette, but even then, I think started to realize, hey, maybe he should. In my mind, I don't think he should have been 10 toes all the way down, you know. But I like each of the characters. I like the fact that they really have to face in this season they had to face the things that were really holding them back, and they handle it beautifully in the storyline.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ty. I'm having technical difficulties, but we're going to continue anyway. Um, so now, the thing that I was going to bring up in my personal perspective is that with the new characters, they all were codependent on each other in different levels. I think that Annette and Edward, of course, they'd known each other longer, but part of that is that Annette was a slave, like legitimately had a slave owner, and that slave owner was a vampire of all things. So it's kind of like you're dealing with trauma that can't even expire. You're not even capable of being able to rid yourself of it. And it's like with Edward, they kind of modeled him off a little bit of I'm going to get the name wrong. Xavier. The only difference with Edward is he's an amazing singer, and Xavier is more so with the violinist. But this is an actual person that this took place during actually the French Revolution as well. And so them taking luxuries from that and them both balancing kind of who they are and navigating through this world, it's kind of like the main team like knew their importance very early on. It's kind of like, I don't know you that well, but I want to protect you. And they instinctively want to protect everyone. But there's some entitlement going on and there's some conflictions going on. And I think that that's what Ty is talking towards. Is they're at times that they go out of pocket. And when they go out of pocket, it kind of makes things rough for us to see. Because I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, you don't got to go down this route. But I do think that how they interact and motivate each other as a whole, specifically with Reacher, I think that it was all essential growth for every single character. I was impressed by Annette and Edward in so many different levels, and I think that it just added to me caring more about Tara, more about Maria, and also, honestly, we haven't really talked that much about Reacher, but it's because he's built around such a great cast and such great characters that mold him into being the hero that he has to be. Like, even there's secrets that we're kind of keeping from you guys that we would love to talk about. Certain callbacks, certain key characters, certain characters we've never seen in person before we're dealing with. And it's just dope. it's really dope to see how they round all that out. But I can't speak about it any more than that because I feel like we're in spoiler territory now. So I guess the final bit about this, man, is to talk about the story. Like, do you guys feel like this is a story that can last multiple different seasons, much like what they started with Castlevania 1? Because again, like Castlevania, like there are certain plot threads that take place in present day now. And for them to go and jump all the way to the French Revolution and make it a very interesting dynamic of characters, and there's more stakes than it was before. I'm impressed. I at this point now, they have not proved me wrong, but I'm curious y'all's perspective on the story this time around. Is this something that can continue to last and you want to be continued to invested in?
I know for me, the villain, like she had her henchmen, but the villain, I feel like she's low-key slightly better than Dracula, only because Dracula's familiar. Dracula had layers to him that kind of made him a little sympathetic, but ruthless at the same time. Her, she's just ruthless. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what else she does and how it's kind of like I'm trying to remember the female vampire from Castlevania that she's higher than her. Like she was trying to be Dracula, but she wasn't Dracula. This chick, I think she could be she could totally take on Dracula if he was still around. So it's just one of those things where she's that level. And then you have Jolta and the other guy. So for me, I'm looking forward to seeing what she has in store, as well as how, you know, our heroes, very similar to how Castlevania was, we had it, you know, kind of like grow in our powers, more backstory, what have you, for everyone, and also include other elements as well to, you know, have a big climatic finish and a big showdown with the characters. This is, like I said, this is round one. What else can we do here? we can only go up from here.
Oh man, Ty, what are your thoughts?
So ironically, the baddie, the main villain baddie, I think power level she would probably give Dracula a run for the money, but I don't think she could beat Dracula. Dracula has a lot of depth that she doesn't have. She's just your base, for me, your base villain. Big bad chick with a lot of power. She's just coming in to let everybody know she the new thing. Everybody gonna fall in line. Whereas Dracula had a kind of depth and, you know, seduction to how he a certain Casanova thing to how he handled stuff. So it was like he didn't really show you all his cards, but if you pushed him, he would show you how bad he really is. And I think while we saw some of that, the big surprise was, oh, Dracula's actually a freaking beast, you know, because you didn't really see that till you got later on. With this chick, she just coming out showing off, you know, all kind of guns blazing kind of thing. And I'm just kind of like, I don't really know. She's kind of basic for me in terms of her depth, because everyone else, even, you know, even Drolta had more depth than her in my mind. But the story in and of itself is really, really good. It's very Assassin's Creed like, if you will. That's what I love about it. It's like, here's a story that was going on around the French Revolution that, you know, you wouldn't see. It's behind the veil, kind of like when they did Assassin's Creed Unity around the French Revolution. So it's, you know, I think no matter what your scenario is, if you have a good story and you have the people to play it out and lay it out well, it'll always be good. And so far, Castlevania, this particular Netflix series, the original 4 seasons and now Nocturne, I am still as invested as I was with those previous characters. And I certainly hope this turns into some kind of Assassin's Creed-esque kind of thing where it's now let's go to from the French Revolution. Now let's go to the American Revolutionary War. What happened with vampires then? Or, let's go to, the Civil War, or let's go to whatever major historical event has occurred, even something in our current time. And we see what happens with the Belmonts behind the scenes, kind of like the Assassin's Creed aspect. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what else they do. But, I can't say they have nowhere else to go but up because, we've seen situations where first season comes out guns blazing and then the kind of second season you're like, So I really think they have had they came off the shoulders of Castlevania and skyrocketed because it's a great season. But I certainly hope they keep whatever formula they have to further the story and not let it, go down, because it is a spectacular series and season so far. And I don't think that's going to happen. I have full faith in it, as I did with the original Castlevania series. So once you have a good story, you've got the foundation for most things. You just got to pray everything else comes together well. And I think they did that here. So kudos to them.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the thing for me was with the main vampire queen, we really don't see what she's capable of truly. And I think that intrigues me more than anything, because there's something that's said by one of the characters, and you realize her hands have been in a lot more than you think. And and that excited me more so than even her showing up, because vampires don't die like that, especially older vampires like that. So I'm highly invested to see where it's going. But I think more than just her as a character, they've invested in the other characters equally as much. Like every single one of the characters, you're like, I want to see what happens with Edward. I want to see, who Annette becomes. And also, like, they develop certain relationships. Certain people start like liking on each other, and they ain't done anything with that. And when you pull like a vet from straight out of The Woman King and Thuso playing a role of Annette, like, you coming to play. So I'm all the way excited to see where it's gonna go. But one of the things that always intrigued me about this series, as well as anything that kind of like Netflix has kind of come out with that they've invested in, is the animation. I mean, I'll use this as a baseline example. I mean, when Arcane came out, man, it changed the game. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, Arcane was something that, only certain people knew League of Legends, but when the show came out, everybody was like, whoa. And when Castlevania came out, it was a whole other thing, because like, yo, this is really good. And even, like I said, like, I waited till the second season to even started, and I was hooked. But that animation was amazing. And they found a way within this season to make the animation even tighter. Like, the action is even more fluid, way more natural. They're using different power sets. It's insane. So I wanted to kind of get you guys' perspective as far as the action, the animation, how they've ramped it up. Like, did it draw you guys in more? Like, I know, Ty, you had a comparison that you wanted to bring up, but where did you guys think about animation and action this time around?
Yeah, like I said before, the animation was top notch. The fight scenes were top notch. I was invested. The magical powers, the new things that we got to see because of characters like Annette and Edward, the expansion of the magical elements that they're using and where those powers come from, and how far those powers can go. Like, there's a learning curve here that we can see these characters grow into, to again hopefully defeat the villain. So there's lessons here, whereas I feel like in Castlevania those powers, they did expand, but there was a really there was like a foundation that that they didn't need to learn too much more. It was more of becoming more powerful. Whereas with this season or with this series, you kind of get both. Like there's a foundation, but there's something that you can tell that they can learn and grow with, and also become more powerful at the end of the day. So, yeah, the animation was amazing. Like I didn't doubt that for a minute, because I feel like just animation in general, like you've said in previous reviews for other animated movies that we've seen this year, or even shows that we've seen this year, they're killing it. They're killing it. So this is no different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Ty, what was your take?
So the animation, there were actually certain scenes of this animation that actually kind of reminded me as if somebody took Aeon Flux and kind of upgraded it a bit. It gave me certain Aeon Flux, the original show kind of vibes, you know, where if somebody took this, like this image here from Aeon Flux or this here, and upgraded it to 2023, I think we would get, you know, Castlevania Nocturne to a certain extent. I actually love the animation. You know, League of Legends, of course, Arcane was just absolutely ridiculous, but we've had some really good animated items, animated content over the course of this year that has been absolutely incredible. Like not just, you know, we're referencing Arcane, but we've also had like Across the Spider-Verse. But what I love about what they're doing with animation is everybody's taking their own spin on it. You know, like you're seeing, you know, like take this scene, for example, you're with animation, they're literally, even in this still, you're seeing the shock and the fear in Richter's eyes, and you're seeing Orlok's, you know, even if his eyes were normal and not green, as you see, he's really kind of bearing down that fear on him. It's like he's actually taking the fear in his hands and pressing it upon Richter in this. And this is just a still. It's not even, you know, a clip. But you can get all that, even with the subtle variation where he stands a little higher in that close up, you know, where his nose is a little higher than Richter. So he's really looking down on this kid, you know. So I love how they handle the animation. I love where you start, like even with this one, where you start to see Richter now, where he's giving you that impression of I've mastered that fear and I'm ready to now face it and take it down. And that's what I love about animation in general. You can take a still from an animation movie or video or anything and get so much out of it. And it kind of just shows you the kind of care and passion that they put into it. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do with the animation in seasons to come. And I actually hope it goes longer than the 4 or 5 seasons that we got with the original Castlevania. However, if they're able to give you a good story like we got with the original Castlevania in 4 seasons and they do it in 2 or 3, perfectly fine with that, as long as the story is told well and you get the story as it should be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Ty. Yeah, I think that this is, I'm very surprised how good this is. They got like an amazing cast that does an amazing job. They ramped up the action and animation. Heck, even normally, you know, the last 2 episodes for any of these shows, they kind of go full tilt as far as like, you know, the action and everything. But it was something about how they did this one that the stakes felt so dire that I was like, there's no way this is going to be the end. Realistically, like y'all are in a completely different weight class trying to go up against the best. And the way that they kind of end this, like, it's kind of like, yo, our people are dope. They're good. They're handling their own, but they ain't ready for that smoke. That smoke is coming. And and it's knocking. Like, y'all need to figure out how to fight or flight because it's not going to happen. So I loved how dire the last few episodes are. Like, they're downright sad. And I really truly enjoyed that, because normally with even some of the Castlevania, it was like, oh man, everybody got their power up, everybody's going in. Like, yeah, none of that mattered in this. And I loved it. I really did. But yeah, shout out to the cast. Shout out to them continuously making great content, and giving us a story that we value and characters that, you know, we've never seen before, in, you know, kind of even more of a historic sense, like going that route as well, because that opens up the possibility of them going more and more towards present day while also merging in the video game element. And I know, Ty, we haven't talked about it, but this is still a video game series. So it's like, it's up there. You know, we've got, you know, The Last of Us, we've got like this and other shows, but it's fascinating that they're taking different segments of time and continue to push the envelope. So I don't know if y'all have any closing thoughts. I personally think this was a 10. I don't really have any. I can nitpick about certain things, and mainly the characters being stupid. But outside of the characters making stupid, holistic mistakes, even if they would have made all the perfect mistakes, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, everything, if everybody was on their game, it still wouldn't have mattered at the end of the day how the series ended. I think more than anything, their stupid mistakes brought more character development and made me kind of like rally behind them once they learned from those mistakes. But yeah, I don't have any gripes about it. Y'all have any closing remarks on it?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Sam. I think it's time to wrap it up. But of course, Ty, if you have something else to say.
So I just wanted to jump in real quick. Like he said, we didn't really talk about the video game aspect, and I'm not really going to go into it really. But what I'm very happy that we're starting to see at this point is creators that are taking video games content or stories and characters and transitioning them to other media are actually making much better choices of where they're doing it. Like, Last of Us needed to be a multi-episode series on HBO live action because it brought out the best of that game. You know, we reviewed Sam and I reviewed, you know, another movie recently. Won't go into it, but it needed to be a movie, you know, and actually because of the basis of the movie, of the content, it needed to be in that realm and handled it well. This is another version of that. Castlevania, an animated multi-episode series, was probably the best choice for this. I don't think with what we have seen in the original series and Nocturne so far that you could really consolidate that into your standard 2.5 hour movie. I don't even think if you were to take Zack Snyder Justice League time, 4 hours and change, I still don't think you can get all the stuff we've gotten out of a multi-episode series. So I do want to say, at least in terms of we're talking about video game transition to other media, I'm happy to see that folks are taking a step back to really determine what is the actual best way to show this story, this content, you know, and I think so far it's been doing well. But in terms of final comments for it, for me, I'm gonna say 9.5, and I say 9.5 because it's that nitpick. It's Joel. Shout out to Joel. It's that nitpick because while I do get upset because I think I nitpick it because, yes, although they make the stupid decisions that end up being very Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility kind of aspects, the part that really irks me and why I'm giving it the 9.5 is they present these characters, the majority of the ones we're talking about, at least of the squad, in a very you know, dominant in a very well-rounded way. Like when Annette shows up and Edward shows up, they know what they're doing. They're like, hey, we're here. We have a task. We know what we're doing. And then as you go through, they start making, or really Annette starts making these epically stupid decisions. I think if they didn't present them as so cavalier and as so confident as they are, it wouldn't bother me with the stupid decisions. If it was more so, hey, I was entrusted with this task. We came from where we came. We're really not sure, but this is the information someone gave us and we're doing what's right. And then you see them build up into what we first see them as. I would take the 0.5 off and just make it a full 10 out of 10. But because how they present it, even though their mistakes show the prowess that they have and how they go into it, it's the fact that they presented them as, I already have this prowess. You know, the only person that really does not have that really is Richter, because we see Richter's, you know, we see early on Richter's, you know, issue, you know, what he has to face. We see that early on. We don't get to see that with some of the other characters. These other characters are super confident, super adamant about what they're trying to do in terms of the squad, and super knowledge of self, you know. But then when they're making these stupid decisions, it's like, you didn't present yourself this way. So that's the reason why I give it a 9.5, but it's still a great series. I'm fully invested, and I think the series overall, my prediction, it will be a 10 out of 10, but we won't know till later on.
Yeah, I meant to rate too. It's 9.5, pretty much what Ty was saying. For the reasons, me being nitpicky, I gotta be nitpicky. So yeah.
Yeah, I only raise this so we can close this out. Is that I had said the stupid decisions were based on fight or flight. And if you take like Annette and you take Richter, both of them were basically fight or flight. Literally speaking, because when you face your trauma, you do one or two things. And the way that they went, both of them individually and collectively, did one way and the other one did another way, because it's kind of like it's a trigger. The whole point is a trigger. Like as soon as you see, it's kind of like if, say, you hypothetically speaking had a person that abused you, you ain't seen him for during 20 years, and then all of a sudden now he's right in front of you, or they're right in front of you. Like, what do you do? Like, you could go and be like, oh man, I ain't dealing with this, I'm about to get out of here. Or, you know, you have a ninja moment. And I mean, that's why I can't detract that, because people are different. Every person is completely different. And no matter how skilled you are, you could be in the service for 20 years. That person, you know, did that to you 20 years. You've had military training, and all of a sudden you see this person. What do? I think that's why I really like this, because we can't go into it, but that's all I'm going to say. When you guys see the show, you'll know what I mean by that. I'm just saying that to these two individuals, because that is why I'm leaving it alone, because fight or flight in general is not necessarily the best way of handling either way, because, yeah. But I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone.
Yeah. I'll concede to your point to a degree, because there was triggers for Annette and for Richter. So I'll give you that, but I'm still being petty and nitpicky. So
yeah. I can't.
All I got.
Here's the thing, you know, I hear the point, but I can't concede to it, because I will say, yes, they had triggers, especially Annette and Richter, but it's one thing to have that moment and that trigger, and then it's another thing to make the decision. And then after you made the decision, you counter your triggered response and then do something that affects everybody. That, like, the thing is I hear what you're saying, but the truth of the matter is Annette blows your whole aspect out of the water.
Because the reason why I can't concede to that is because Richter is the same exact way. Richter technically was the most important pivotal character, and the decision that he made is far. It's debatable. It's far worse. That's why I'm saying, like,
but Richter,
is it though?
no, it's not, because like I said, we see Richter's issue early on, and his initial response.
That's what makes it so bad. Everybody knew.
That's what makes it so bad. But the difference is that Richter then gets put in a position where he has no choice but to make the final decision, and he does. Annette doesn't get that. Annette is like, I don't care
and I see Ty's point too. Yeah.
I don't care what we just agreed to. I'm choosing to make the stupid decision at this point. That's the thing. And it really affected another character that we really were invested in. And that's what I'm picking on. That it's a difference between a actual choice and a situation where you have no choice but to make that choice. You know, you can have your initial trigger response, but when you're in a situation where you've made your decision and now the results of it has been done, you're in a good spot, but then you actually make the conscious decision to do what she did. It blows that theory out of the water. Richter, yes, made a very crazy decision, but we understand why he did that. And I think if what happened to Richter hadn't happened later on, he would have maintained that decision, right? But when he's put in a situation where he has no choice but to make a choice, he could have kept that decision or chose another route. And we know what he did. But Annette blows that out the water because she does.
This can be its own. Maybe we're gonna really wait till after September the 28th. And we'll come back to this so you guys can know what the heck we're talking about, because y'all are probably like, what are they debating right now?
Right.
What
we are having
we may have to do a spoiler discussion. Hopefully we'll be able to do a spoiler discussion.
Yeah. We'll have to do one sooner rather than later, because I'll have to come back and watch this when we're done with it to refresh my point, because there's a lot of time between now and September.
Right. No, but I totally get your point, Ty. That's why I also did a 9.5. The way that they introduced Annette, if they had, like you said, introduced her a different way, then it would have made more sense or more understandable what she does later. Even though I still would have been mad because we ain't supposed to be doing all that. But I think I see both points, but I'm more leaning towards Ty right now. So.
No, it's
right
fine.
here. This.
It's fine. I'm saying this openly because because I feel exactly the way you guys feel.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into it. Anyway, hope you guys.
We'll have our own post review spoiler discussion in a moment.
Yeah, we're gonna do that offline.
Yeah, we're gonna do that offline.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining in on this discussion. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. More than anything, that's the reason why we did like our early in the very beginning of this, so you guys know to watch it. This is one you don't want to miss. This is one that continues the legacy of what Netflix has brought to Castlevania for us as a whole. And yeah, go and check it out. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the post notification button. Also, we've got like a lot of interviews, a lot of discussions coming out. By the time you guys see this, we will actually, we're going to be in Toronto. Maybe already back from Toronto during this time. So we got a lot of things coming you guys' way. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back. Peace.